Guys, do I have an exciting podcast for you today? I had the incredible opportunity to speak with the legendary Danny Brevik, aka Big Brev. If you've not heard of him, you must be living under a rock. He is a legendary individual and a legendary singer. If you have not seen his work before or heard him sing before, I will present some examples of his work right now.
2, 3, 4.
Mommy don't know that it's getting hot at the body shop, doing something unholy. He said that while she's rubbing it, she'll be popping it. Yes, he put it down slowly. Coochie hall, coochie hall.
I could wear my Louis Vuitton, but even with nothing on, bet I made you look, I made you look. Yeah, I look good in my Versace dress, but I'm hotter when my morning hair's a mess. 'Cause even with my hoodie on, bet I made you look, I made you look.
Heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do you? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah. I don't wanna know if you're playing me, keep it on the low, 'cause my heart can't take it anymore.
And if you're creeping, please don't let it show. Oh, baby.
Something got a hold on me lately. No, I don't know myself anymore. Feel like the walls are all closing in and the devil's knocking on my door.
As you can see, extremely talented, and I am highly privileged to bring this podcast to you. I hope you enjoy today's video. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, hey man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to have you with us, my friend. I know you were hyper busy. I wanted to shout out Jen for connecting us because it's been difficult up until this point, but it's a privilege, without a doubt. So I am excited to get down in the nitty gritty of it today. Guys, thank you so much for making this happen. Thank you for supporting the channel. I will have Danny's info in the description. Any way you can support him, his socials, this, that, and the other, all down below. Without further ado, ready to get into this, my friend?
I'm ready.
All right, man. So I'm going to hit you with a pretty deep one, but it's going to probably take us down a rabbit hole.
All right. Fire away.
I like to start off by asking my guests how they got into music, but specifically, where does your music story begin? Where did this love for music, this passion that you have, where did it begin in your life?
Yeah, so when I was a baby, I used to sing a lot in a high chair before I could talk, and I had really good pitch. Obviously, I couldn't talk yet, but I had really good pitch, like to the point where my dad could tell what songs I was singing. So naturally, just a really good ear for melodies before I could talk. And then once, as I aged, singing was just something that I always did, especially in the car. Like my mom would play a lot of oldies in the car and I would always sing along. My dad always played Foreigner. I love Foreigner, old 80s band. And I would always sing along with Lou Gramm in his car. And, just went down the rabbit hole. You'll see in the back, I have all my favorite singers.
Oh, yeah.
I painted all these myself to pay homage. I mean, I will say this, each painting was a 60-hour project at least. They're all on sound. So those are all acoustic panels. Because in my studio, obviously I need acoustic panels. So what I did was I built the panels and they were all white. And I just didn't like that. It just didn't look good. So I bought some black paint and I painted, a bunch of my favorite singers. And so that's how I started, man. Just singing along with really who you see behind me. You know, we got some of the all-time greats back here. I'll twist the camera so you can see some of the other ones. We got Pavarotti in the corner, Whitney Houston. Behind the lamp, if I can, we got Mary Poppins. I'll just move this out of the way.
I love the aesthetic of the room as well.
Yeah, so the room was. I mean, this has been this year's project is building up my studio. Obviously, I wanted to do something with the door, so I made it into a submarine door. I thought that kind of matched the sea shanty vibe. Yeah. But yeah, man, these are the people. These are just a few of the people. There's a lot of them that really inspired me when I was a little kid, and so I used to sing along with. I did a lot of like Freddie Mercury. I loved to sing along with him. You know, and my biggest is Frank Sinatra. That was a little later when my voice changed, but so yeah, that's where it started for me. It started in the high chair, and it goes back as farther than I can remember. I've always been singing. Now I didn't do it in school back then, but I did it at home as just a hobby. It's
amazing to me to see the inspiration from everyone that I've interviewed so far, but just everyone, it's always a different inspiration and from all walks of life, and I love it because you've got some pretty incredible figures behind you, really do. And I know they are some of my inspirations as well. I did have one additional follow-up question to add on to that. Where was it in your journey where you started to really fall in love with the idea of bass singing? Because I know that's a pretty big portion of what you do.
Yeah, it was a later thing. That's within the last few years, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I was like, when my voice changed, because I went from being like a boy soprano to being literally, I actually went from having the highest voice in my choir to having the deepest voice in 1 year. During I left for summer break, 8th grade, came back in 9th grade, and I had low C's. You know what I mean? And that was when Frank Sinatra became so important to me, because I couldn't sing along with Freddie Mercury anymore. I couldn't sing along with Steve Perry from Journey or Lou Gramm from Foreigner. I couldn't do that, and I had the wherewithal to seek out stuff that I could sing along with. And Frank Sinatra, being he's a high baritone. Yeah. Listening to Sinatra taught me how to really navigate, not the super high, but how to get into like the passaggio, into that portion of the voice that's not high, but it feels high. And it's because when you're going through the voice change, even just a middle C is brutal if you're a bass. Right. And so listening to like Sinatra, and then I went down the country rabbit hole in high school as well with Toby Keith, Josh Turner, Trace Adkins. Those are all deeper voices too. Now they're not like super bass, but like they're deeper. And I sang it because I was good at it. Now when I went into college, I went in as they labeled me a bass baritone, because I had low C's, but I didn't necessarily have crazy low B flats or like crazy notes like that. So they were more bass baritone, and I never really cared. I never cared about the low notes. I could sing them in choir, like I was in my chamber singers, and I was the deepest voice then. And when we would have like a low D over the full choir, and I could really hammer it. I mean, it was fun, but it wasn't something that I necessarily cared that much about. I was more about just singing the songs well. If I can sing a song well, I don't want people, my goal with singing was always, I don't want range to be what people focus on. I want people focusing on good storytelling and good singing. When you listen to Teddy Swims, for instance, does anyone even care about what the high note is in Lose Control? I don't even think most people know. They just think it's a good song. And I think that's
completely enamored with the voice.
Yeah, and the storytelling and the emotion, right? And for me, that's always been the focus. Now, when like bass talk became a thing, and all these dudes were singing these crazy low notes and these subharmonics, I had no idea how they were doing it. In fact, there was a part of me that wondered if it was real at all, because anything can be generated and faked now. And then I stumbled upon a very old Bobby Bass video where he explained how he was doing it. And I was like, ooh, I could try that. And at first I failed multiple times. And then one day I was driving in the car and I slipped into a subharmonic and I was like, this is possible. And then once that happened, I was like, well, I'm obsessed with singing. So this is something I'm going to add to my regimen, and do this and start working with this.
Yep.
I had no idea at that point that I was going to become like well known in the bass community for subharmonics. That happened. So that was a later thing, kind of fell into that.
Yeah. And to kind of branch off of that as well, it's really cool to find out that you actually built this knowledge off of an older Bobby bass video. So how deep does that relationship run with you and Bobby and some of the other members of the Bass Talk community?
Yeah, so that was during that like weird COVID period where so I taught at the time at UHeart, as a voice professor, voice teacher, and we went virtual, and naturally my students started sending me these videos of these younger singers singing these sea shanties, and I didn't know who they were at the time. That was how I got introduced to Bobby Bass, Luke Taylor, Luke the Voice, people like that, the Wellerman. And so I just, that's where it started. I didn't think anything of it. I was like, oh, these are cool. I never sang them. And then one day, one of my students challenged me to sing on TikTok. She was like, you're a professional opera singer. You're not singing at all because of COVID. All my gigs had gotten canceled. I was supposed to do Beethoven's Ninth on like NPR. It was going to be a big year lined up for some cool gigs. I was going to do a Shostakovich number 13 at Jordan, and that got canceled. And it was just like all this stuff kept getting canceled. And so my student Paige was like, there's this really cool one breath challenge going around TikTok that I think you should do. And it was singing the Dancing Queen, but you do it in like a high, like mixed voice falsetto.
Yep.
And one day I just said, yeah, this would be fun. So I did it. I tossed it up, and my very first video, and it got 60,000 views. And I was like, man, I went from singing in front of really no one during this period to now 60,000 people have watched this little clip of me singing. And that was when I saw value in it. Once I saw value in it, and I saw like this is a goal-oriented arena that I've never tapped into, that was when I was like, well, let's do some research. And that was when I found Bobby. Like I started actually following him. I started following Luke. I started following another a tenor, David Michael Frank. It was just a bunch of TikTokers that I started following, and mainly the vocalists. And as their stuff would pop up, I would always ask myself, all right, what are they doing to make this sound a little better? What are they doing that's generating all these views? And I just kind of started studying the algorithm. And then, I had a few videos do well. Like I had a few videos, hit 1 million views and things like that, which on TikTok, I think if you've been on TikTok long enough, eventually that's going to happen. And Bobby ended up watching one of my videos clearly because he started following me. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Bobby Bass is following me. Yeah. And then he was doing a TikTok live, and I stumbled into it. And I was like, oh, what's up, Bobby? And he was like, whoa, Big Brev's here. He's like, hey, man, I just found you on TikTok. You got a great voice. And I'm typing. And I typed to him. I was like, how do I get involved in one of these collaborations? And he was like, just like that. And he was like, I'll get your email later. But yeah, I'd love to have you in a collab. And that was the Hoist the Colors, for the Hoist the Colors collab. And that was kind of how I got introduced to that scene now, was Bobby wanted a bass that was able to sing higher without losing their bass quality, right? And so in Hoist the Colors, what he had me do was he had me sing all the low bass parts, but then he actually had me sing a lot of higher parts in a deeper, like darker timbre. And it's kind of cool because that obviously that song took off, the North Sea took off. If you really listen, I mean, you hear a lot of me because of that. It's like you can hear that one voice that's kind of soaring above everyone. And it's because, I mean, I gave him 9 separate tracks of me singing that. And when we heard it, when me and Jen heard the final track, we both were like, geez, do you think he's going to turn me down at all? Is he going to like, but he never did. He left it in. And that was kind of how that whole relationship started. And now we're super close. Like I'm really close with Bobby. We've traveled to Nashville a few times. We're doing this study now together at Mass General on subharmonics. He introduced me to Peter Barber. Now I'm really close with Peter. I'm really close with Luke. And so, that it just kind of took off like that.
it's a really cool symbiotic relationship that you guys have tying all this together. And it's really cool really cool to see like everyone that has come together over this niche side of music, right? And I'm very fortunate to have watched the growth of some of this too, because although I might have started in 22 as just someone geeking out over music, over reaction analysis videos and the desire of interviewing singers like yourself, I kind of started out on this side of music. It's amazing to see how it blossomed.
Yeah. Yeah, the bass stuff in particular, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it did. It took off. And it's cool. It's a new layer. For me, it's just a new layer. I look at it as another color that I can experiment with. When you watch like my full covers of things, I throw it in there sparingly. I'm not I'm not big on bass for the sake of bass. Sure. I'm a storyteller. I like I said, I listened to a ton of Frank Sinatra, and that's what he was. He was a storyteller. And so when I sing, every range that I'm singing in, every little ad that little ad lib that I'll put in or embellishment, all of it's there to support the storytelling and to support the subtext of the song, to really get that emotion across. I will throw subharmonics in if I feel like they can portray the emotion, but if I don't feel like they can, then I won't. And, sometimes my followers would be like, oh man, I really wish it went deeper. And I'm like, you know what? You'd be surprised. I think you would lose some of the magic of the storytelling if it had gone deeper in some of those moments. And so I think it's cool. I think people go a little overboard sometimes with it. And that's just because people want to hear bass for the sake of bass. But like I said, for me, if I can't support it with the subtext, then typically I don't put it in.
And I feel like that's something that I can align with too, because at the end of the day, that's what music's purpose truly is. It's not necessarily just the person singing it and their abilities. It's the story behind it and the love being poured into it.
100%. It's all driven by the emotion and supported by your subtext. All of it.
Without a doubt. And that kind of answered one of my other questions that I was going to ask later, given I was wanting to see kind of how you got into everything, but we kind of covered that, which is awesome. And I enjoyed hearing that part of the story. But there is some other stuff that we would also kind of like to share with the audience.
Sure.
For anyone that doesn't know this about you, when was it in your journey here, social media, content creating, music, that surreal feel actually hit you? Whenever it really realized, oh my God, wow, this is doing way more than I ever expected it to.
It's interesting. There was a lot of little wins in there. There was a few. So the first one I would say was when I sang Hallelujah as a duet on TikTok with a guy playing piano. His name's Piano Jordan. I sang that covering 3 octaves, which is funny because I just talked about how I don't do that for the sake of bass. I threw a high C. I threw a high C in there, really for the sake of singing a high C. I was like, hey, let's try this out.
Yeah.
That video, it was my first video to hit 1 million. And that was surreal because I woke up the next morning and I had 40,000 followers. And the night before, when I went to bed, I think I had like 500. And so that was pretty surreal. And then the next big one was I sang a bass line just with my earbud, and it did decent. But another TikToker named Manav,
yes,
I don't know if you know Manav. Yeah, okay.
I do.
So
yeah.
Manav, he reached out to me and he was like, dude, I want to let you know a lot of us in the bass community really look up to you as a singer. He's like, can I make a suggestion about how you record this? And he said, think about recording it on a DAW first. And I didn't have any clue how to do that. I didn't know what a DAW was.
Yeah.
But I did have my work computer from UHeart, which was one of those old Mac, iMac computers. It was like a big one. And it had a built-in GarageBand. And so he was like, record it on that and then do the music videos separately from that. Mm-hmm. And so I did that night. I sang Made You Look, Meghan Trainor, sang a bass line to it.
I remember
that video. Yeah, that video got 10 million views. that was surreal. That was like, whoa, Manov was right. Geesh. And then I followed up by doing more of those, and I got another like 10 million on what was it? Unholy.
Yes.
And then I did just went down and just started doing all the ones that the other bases were doing, and they were getting millions and millions and millions of views. That was on TikTok. Now, my frustration was at that time we were thinking we were going to lose TikTok, like it was going to get banned in the US.
Yes.
And I looked at my Instagram and I was like, "Oh great, I have a whopping, 500 followers on Instagram. How am I going to make this transition?" And man, I don't know how it happened. Somehow it did. I started posting all those old videos on Instagram, which I had already posted those and they didn't do well.
Right.
But I'm wondering if maybe Instagram changed their algorithm or something, because I started posting them on Instagram and then boom, that took off even more than TikTok did. And next thing I know, I had 100,000 followers on Instagram so fast. And then 100,000 turned into 200, and then 200 turned into 3. Next thing I know, I had 500,000 followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
And that was when it got surreal for me. That was when I put Valhalla Calling bass line out, that I kind of redid. What I did with that was it was a Serena Bell duet with them. I pulled it in. At this point now I had Logic, and I sampled a sound of marching because I wanted it to sound like Vikings were marching, and I used that as the perk for it. And I laid down a strictly subharmonic bass line, very, very deep bass line to that. And then for the music video, I dressed up kind of like a Viking. And that one really, really took off. That was the one that took off the most for me. I think I've collectively gotten, I think, 100 million views on that one.
That is wild.
And so that was surreal. I would say that was another surreal moment. And then the most surreal is when I'm in public and people are like, "Oh my God, you're Big Brev," and it happens frequently. And I think a lot of that's just because of my look. I look so distinct. Like when I go to Nashville with Bobby and Peter, people always recognize me first. They're like, "Whoa, that's Big Brev," and then they like start making the connection. Like, wait, he looks familiar too. Wait, oh my God, I follow you. You're Bobby. You're Bobby Bass. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so like that's always a little surreal when people are recognizing me. So that was a surreal moment. And then I guess the last one would be when I wrote my country song Boots. I wrote it as a joke, but it did so freaking well to the point where iHeartRadio played it, and I was getting on stage. I got on stage with Dustin Lynch, and then who actually hosted New Year that year at Times Square. So he was like he's like really going like really at the top. And then after that concert, I was the only one that didn't have a security personnel. And as a result, I just got swamped by people, and people were taking their boots off and asking me to sign them. And I like didn't know how to navigate. I didn't know how to get out of there. Like I was trying to find my way out of this crowd. Yeah. And then it's funny because the guys backstage were like, "Yeah, man, you'll learn. Yeah, you got to have a security personnel if you're going to do that. Otherwise, you got to shove people off of you." And so that was a surreal moment for me too. Was being a part of that whole concert and that whole thing.
That sounds like an epic moment.
Yeah.
What was it like sharing the stage with Dustin?
The coolest thing about it was, so Dustin was late. His private jet was arriving late. So funny. I was like, "Oh wow, he's coming in on a jet. I'm driving in my Toyota Corolla." I'm in the like waiting room, the like quasi green room that they had, and he comes in. The door opens and I immediately see Dustin Lynch, but he immediately saw me and he was like, "Whoa, what's up, Big Brev?" That was the coolest part. I was like, "Dude, guy already knows me." And he even said, he was like, "Dude, that like song you did, I hear it all the time. That hoist the colors," what he was talking about. That Yo Ho song, dude, I hear it all the freaking time. You guys crushed that. That was the most surreal part for me, was the fact that he knew who I was. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That
I know for me that would have been insane, but someone in your shoes where you're still on the rise and you just get another confirmation that you're still on the rise by literally having Dustin Lynch tell you that you have an incredible piece of work must have been satisfying things.
It was. And that whole crew of singers there, we had Corey Kent, we had Chase Beckham,
Yep.
Another guy, a local guy named Jordan Oakes. The thing about them was they all started as guitarists. They were really good at the guitar. Even I think even Dustin Lynch really started as a guitarist, and they added singing to that. Whereas I'm the opposite. I started as a singer. Obviously, I had a lengthy opera career,
Yeah.
and so we're going about it in two different ways. It's like for me, when I get on stage, it's about the voice. It's about shining with the voice. With those guys, when they go on stage, it's less about the voice and more about their like nice guitar strumming and like their little fills with the guitar
Yep.
and they're obviously the storytelling with their country songs. And so there was a cool little dichotomy in that concert for me, because it was like, all right, well, I'm the voice guy. That's cool. I'm cool with being the voice guy. Like in country music, there's less of that. There's
Yeah.
definitely more like strumming patterns and people, they're not like super flashy with their voices. And like for me, I think that was a cool thing that was a little different about me was, all the songs, like I sang Tennessee Whiskey, and obviously there's a lot of riffs in that, and it's like there's a lot of vocal acrobatics in that song, and I threw in some extra high notes, and that was just, it was kind of cool to be that guy in that concert, the guy that's really leaning on the voice to that extent. And they mentioned that to me. That was cool about it. Like those guys backstage were like, damn, dude, that's a voice. And I was like, oh, that means a lot, guys. And they're like, what'd you do before this? Because that was my first country song.
Sure.
And I was
Yeah.
like, honestly, I sang opera for 10 years. I sang, and they were like, opera? I was like, yeah. They're like, oh man. They were like, that's some real singing. And I was like, well, what you guys are doing is real too. So, it was a
Yeah.
cool moment. It was a cool moment backstage with some big dogs.
I've listened to Boots as well, and I have grown quite fond of it, as a matter of fact.
Sure.
It's a great one. You said
It's
you wrote
catchy.
that as a joke,
Yeah, it was a joke.
which
Yeah,
makes its success that much more credible, right?
yeah. Yeah, it was an inside joke between me, Bobby, and Peter at first. And then I had to, just threw some words together for it. Really easy guitar part. It's just blues and E, just E blues scale or progression. And it just kind of went from there. Next thing I know, I had like the chorus was the first thing that I wrote and it was catchy. Then I wrote the first verse, and then that was all I had for the longest time. And then I added like there was a bridge in it that I took out. It used to be a little longer, and then when I went into the studio, we decided to take the bridge out and add a second verse that I hadn't written yet. So I wrote that in the studio and kind of finished it off, and that was how that happened. But the cool thing about that was there were a bunch of producers that reached out that had heard that I had written this really catchy country song
Yeah.
and wanted to track it for me. And so I ended up tracking it with David Korn. He's out of Watertown, Massachusetts, and he really really brought it to life. That was fun.
That's incredible. That is truly incredible. So, on the subject of the rise to where you're at now, branching off of TikTok, there's a couple of different projects that I personally was curious to hear about your involvement with, and one of those being the Santa Iana cover with the bass
Yep.
singers of TikTok. Tell me about what it was like participating in that and tracking and so on.
Yeah. So all those projects are pretty similar in how they operate. What happens is like in that one, for instance, because that was Ebucks's project.
Yep.
He had tossed out the idea of us doing another song together from the initial guys that did Hoist the Colors.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess the bass singers at TikTok, I think, is what like people call us. And so he sent out this arrangement, and we all just agreed to do it. And so what you do is what it is he arranges it. He puts a demo on like a Google Drive, and he sends it out to all of us. And it's organized by who sings what part. All you got to do is you upload that to Logic, and you sing your part, right? And I just do that right downstairs here in my studio. And when I'm done with it, I bounce them out, send them back to him, and then we wait until he mixes it all together. I think for that he hired someone to actually do the final mix and the master, And once we have that, then we can go into the music video. And for that, it was pretty simple. There wasn't any crazy like choreography or crazy stuff like that for the video. I think it was just black background and everyone was wearing like a black shirt. And so then you sing over your part for the music video. You send that back to eBucks, and then he uses that to make the video. That's to the extent of my involvement in that. I was much more involved in the Halo arrangement that we did because I actually added an extra part to that. Like we originally weren't going to do subharmonics at the end, but when I did it, I was like, ooh, I want this whole last verse to actually be subharmonics, and so I did the whole thing in subs. And so I took some creative liberties there. And at this, we are doing an arrangement from God of War, and I did the same thing with God of War. I went crazy. I added a tenor part, I added an alto part, I added a whole freaking choir to that one. And sometimes I will do that. I even did a little of that with Hoist the Colors, with Bobby's Hoist the Colors arrangement. I just throw some stuff in, see if he keeps it, if it makes it cool. If it doesn't, who cares?
Sure, yeah.
That's typically how I work. Like if I hear like, ooh, I feel like this would sound good here, I'll throw it in there. And you never know. If it makes the final cut, it's not up to me, right? That's in someone else's hands at that point.
Sure, yeah. And I also wanted to mention the Halo cover. I did react to that on the channel not super long ago. It was by far one of my favorite projects that you were involved in. I think I went crazy a couple times over some of the moments in that. Without question, my opinion, one of your best works. At least one of the works that you're involved in.
Sure. Thank you.
It was truly a masterpiece because as someone who's played Halo in the past and who kind of followed that growing up, that was special for sure.
It was cool how it came to be. I mean, the only reason it happened was we went to Nashville and we sang in a stairwell with Lauren Paley, and that particular video had done so well that at the Xbox account even like commented on it, and then next thing you knew, the record label was saying, hey, we should do a full version of this. We should fly you out to Nashville, do a music video, and that was kind of how that came to be. It kind of blossomed into. It was that first Nashville trip was huge for me because if it wasn't for that, Boots never would have happened. Halo never would have happened. I don't think we had even the Valhalla Calling bass gang. I don't even think that was in the books yet, in the cards yet. I think originally they wanted me to do My Mother Told Me, actually. And at the time I was when I started going off for Valhalla Calling, I was like, guys, it'd be silly to do that. We should do this. I got so much momentum on this. And
right.
that was why we actually pivoted over to Valhalla Calling instead of My Mother Told Me. And then they ended up doing My Mother Told Me with Eric Holloway.
That was also incredible, without a doubt.
Oh, the Valhalla Calling arrangement's amazing. Yeah, that's a special one. I was just talking to Tommy right before this call. I had a call with Tommy. I had a call with the whole bass gang, and we were laughing about what Tommy asked me to do in that, because I have a B0, a sustained B0, but then I also had that sustained E5. So it's like, whoa, we are hitting some serious range. But you know what? What was cool about it is it supports the emotions of the song. It's not like it was bass for the sake of bass. It wasn't an E5 for the sake of singing high. It was great. I mean, it was great writing, and it really, really showcased the voice well without doing acrobats for the sake of, just throwing them in there. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. The Valhalla Calling was incredible, without a doubt. I do have one other piece of yours that I also wanted to mention that was one of my personal favorites as well. Was on TikTok, you did a rendition of Paul Bunyan.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that was awesome. I have to hand that one to you. That one was yours. It was meant for you.
Yeah, it was. That was a fun one, man. So what I did for that was I actually pulled the whole track onto Logic, and I mimicked all the sounds they were doing just with my voice. Then I muted that track, and then I got a bottle, and I went, ooh, in the background for the bass line, and I got really into it. And then I started coming up with character voices for the background. That was a fun one. That was like a nice Disney, good for the kids. Plus, it was fun. Plus, it's a bass song. It was deep, so that
Yeah.
was a fun one. Yeah, I
It
appreciate that.
was that was incredible to watch. I remember scrolling across that and thinking that it was no one else was doing anything like that in original work as well, because you put all that together and it did pretty well, and I was just very excited to see something like that.
That was probably my favorite. My favorite short form that I made was that one. Was Paul Bunyan. People always ask, "What's their favorite short form that you did?" I always tell them Paul Bunyan. It was magical. It was fun.
It really has that mystical, like ethereal feeling to it. It's like you're
Yeah.
covering something that everyone can relate to, or at least someone has probably heard of at one point in their life.
Yeah, and even if they hadn't, it's like it's a cool song. It's fun.
Yeah.
There's like it because it's a Disney song. It captures that magical Disney vibe, and it's so happy. Like it's a feel good song.
It is. I saw a clip of you on the stage sharing it with the legendary Avi Kaplan.
Okay. Yep.
Tell me about that, man. That had to have been a pretty legendary moment for you as well.
It was cool. So Avi, I got into this like whole scene later. I knew who Pentatonics was, but I didn't fall into the Pentatonics like hype train early on.
Sure.
I was in my opera phase at that point, and so like I wasn't really keeping too track of the a cappella scene, and so I didn't even know Avi Kaplan was a part of Pentatonics, to be honest. And I saw this really cool singer doing his original song "All Is Well," and so I decided to duet it. And next thing I know, he started following me, and then he randomly reached out to me while I was teaching a voice lesson. And I happened to see it like a notification on my phone, and I pulled it up while my student was getting a little like a water break, and it was Avi asking me if I wanted to come on stage with him when he comes to Boston, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And my student asked like who that was, and I was like, oh, it's I don't know if you know of him, but it's this guy Avi Kaplan. He just wants me to do a gig with him, and he was like, wait, Avi Kaplan, like the guy from Pentatonics? And I was like, I think so. And I was, and sure enough, yeah, that's who it was. And next thing I know, yeah, I'm in the bathroom in Boston jamming out with Avi Kaplan before a gig, and that was what we did. We did All Is Well together, and that was a cool experience. That was at the very beginning of this for me. That was the beginning of this, and it was funny because at the end, I hung out with Avi that whole day, and now we're friends. Obviously, like we text and we know each other, and when he's around, I'll go out to see him, and if I'm in Nashville and he's around, we'll usually go out and get some barbecue or something.
Yeah.
It was just one of those introductions to this world, and what he said to me was, "I have a feeling I'll be seeing a lot more of you," and here we are.
2026, and
Yeah,
you're good friends with someone who arguably has paved the way for many a bass singer nowadays.
yeah. Him and the other one was Tim Faust.
Yes.
And I've become very close with Tim. He and I performed together last July in Nashville. That was a really fun gig too. So getting to share the stage with him was a lot of fun too. I learned a lot. I've learned a lot from Tim, for sure. Just watching him navigate the whole, like because he did the VIP, and I got to watch him how he navigated that, and he navigated it with just like such class. Like his fan base, they feel so appreciated by him because of the way he runs it.
Yep.
And I learned so much by watching how a true master, not just at singing, but at this whole other world of being in the spotlight, and how to handle that. And I've learned a lot from both of them. Definitely, both those guys. They've been inspirational for me.
Nothing short of spectacular, those two. And I have to admit too, they were the very reason that I kind of went into this line of work, so to speak. That's kind of where some of my love for music is. I remember being a preteen young teenager and pretending to sing all these lows because I just thought that what they were doing with their music was so phenomenal. And
Right.
if what you're doing is so good that people have to, or not necessarily have to, but if they have this desire to want to emulate it, then you know you're doing something right.
Yep. And it comes down to technique. A lot of people, they don't realize this, but singing, so much of it comes down to your technique. Like, we all have a larynx, we all have a vocal tract, we all have our lungs, right? We have all the tools to do this. Just some people, they don't learn how to really utilize it. It's kind of like going to the gym. You know, you can go to the gym, and if you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to get very strong. But if you do know what you're doing and you know how to target the muscle groups, you're going to see results literally in the first month of going to the gym. Singing is a lot like that. Like that, you know, and like, obviously, like, I have Studio Brev, and one of the cool things about it is we so in Studio Brev, we specialize in like teaching adults, right? Because there's 1.5 billion programs that specialize in teaching kids. Trying to find one for adults is tough. And so that's why I got so passionate about that, was because, first off, there's not a lot out there for adults. But
Yeah.
what they learn is, wow, the magic of singing is more attainable than I ever thought. Because when you really break it down into its barest form, this is something that we all are capable of doing. Now, are we all capable of singing as deep as, you know, like me or Avi or Tim? Probably not. But are we capable of singing beautifully and storytelling and getting a message out there and sounding our best? Totally. And like, it just comes down to technique, how to utilize the voice in the right way. You know, I teach a 4-pillar approach where essentially singing is vowels connected by consonants, driven by the breath, over good posture. And so I break down those 4 pillars to, like, and we are really, really we're really intense about it. Like, we make sure that everything is intentional. You know, what vowel are we singing? What's the consonant? You know, are we utilizing the posterior chain to support our sound, or are we supporting from the throat, right? Because we don't want to support from there. And is that allowing us to utilize our breath support? And when you look at someone like Avi or someone like Tim, that's what they're doing. They have figured that out. They are it, like, going back to the bodybuilding like analogy. They are that jacked dude walking around that everyone's looking at, being like, I want to look like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Without a doubt. And look, it's really cool to see how all this ties together. Um Moving on to one of the more, I guess you could say, intense questions, but it makes people think whenever they come on. It's one of the ones that I ask a lot. It is, who were some of the more influential figures, both in your life as well as your right now?
Oh, for sure. Gonna start with my wife, Jen. Um, Jen was my vocal coach slash tutor throughout college, my master's, and then into the professional world. Jen, I wasn't the most studious, but she is super studious. She's super organized. She's really good at receiving instruction, putting it down on paper, and then building like a framework that I can stick to. And
Yeah.
then she's also really good. She has great ears, so she can hear what I'm doing in like conjunction to what I did maybe in one of my coachings or one of my lessons or in like a rehearsal. And she can be like, hey, that was good, but you actually did it way better when you sang it, you know, with Michael Marat in that lesson. So let's try this. And she'll give me the instruction again. I'll find it. So that right there, I mean, that's probably that's the top dog. Outside of that, you know, my mom, my dad, my brother, my dad used to sing to me every night before bed. Like, he would sing Edelweiss from The Sound of Music, and then he would sing White Christmas because I would ask for it, regardless of if it was like Christmas or not. And my brother was really good at the piano. My brother could play piano really, really well, and so that was a nice, um, you know, influence for me. My mom was a really hard worker. I had single mom, and she was a workhorse, and so seeing how she navigated through life, you know, as a single parent, how she still made time for fun, still made time for like things like going on ski trips and like that wasn't easy for us because we didn't have a lot of money. But
Sure,
watching
yeah.
how she navigated that is very inspirational. And then on the on like the singer front, I'd already mentioned it, but Frank Sinatra is number one for me on influential singers. Um, in the opera realm, of course, he's not an opera singer, but then I had Bryn Terfel and Cheryl Milnes. I would say they were my biggest inspirations in there. But it's tough to kind of pinpoint everyone because there's so many of them. You know, that's a tough question to really answer. But those are the
It
first
is.
ones off the bat that I can kind of think of.
And everyone has a different answer, right? Sometimes these people are people never met, but they've still been influenced in some
Sure.
major fashion. Then you have people who are very close to home and
Right.
around your entire life. It's really cool to see how everything is brought together. And
Yeah. It's funny, like talking influence. When I started doing all of this on Instagram, I mean, first off, it's like I think at this point, like people don't even realize I was an opera singer. Like a lot of people, they just think, oh, he's the bass, right? And so once the most requested song I had ever gotten was "Sound of Silence," you know,
yeah,
the Disturbed version. And so when 10 West started getting involved with me, that's the record label that did Hoist the Colors with us.
yep,
They had their eyes set on that. They were like, okay, what can you do with this song? And how can you pay homage to the Disturbed version without completely ripping it off and you know make it your own? I would say that was the biggest project because I added a full opera choir to that. It's literally 72 recordings of me singing a full opera choir in the last two verses 4 and 5, which is really the climax of that song. And then
72.
yeah, it's 72 tracks of me singing opera. And then like, you know, good luck to the producer, right?
Yeah.
We used David Korn for that because he did such a good job with Boots. Oh my God, he made a masterpiece out of that. And the whole song, it's one of those things. It's when people heard it, they were like, it's touching my soul. Like it's deep down. And the reason for that is because it did for me when I was recording it. Like the whole thing, like there's no bass for the sake of bass in that song. Yeah, there's some subharmonics here and there's some subharmonics there. The whole thing is the storytelling. It's getting back to the root of the reason that I'm even doing what I do, right?
Yeah.
It's all the technical chops are cool, but if you don't know how to use them in an artistic way, then you might as well not even be singing. That's my way of looking at it. And that right there, I would say, was kind of like the pinnacle to me to this for me to this point was that particular cover, just because it utilized everything that I could give in there. And I would say, like, coming off of inspiration and kind of tying that in, that's where I think this kind of led. This inspiration was doing projects like that and like showing the world what I'm kind of about, right? I am a singer, but I have an operatic background, and I want to use all the colors. I want to use all the colors that I have on my palette. If I can tell the story with that, then that's the best. I mean, that there's nothing better than that. You know what I mean?
Without question. Without question. Is there anything that comes to mind that maybe any of these wonderful people that you mentioned, is there anything that any of them might have said to you that has kind of stuck in the back of your mind your entire life, and you might go back to and hear them saying over something that really profound that they said to you?
The most profound thing for me was kind of why I stopped singing opera. Um, I got very far in the opera scene very quickly. My first job was at Opera Theater of St. Louis, and I was actually waitlisted. I didn't get in, but then 5 minutes later, they emailed me and was like, actually, a slot just opened for you. I was like, okay, well, you guys didn't want me, but now you do. So I had a chip on my shoulder going into that job.
Sure.
My whole my whole last semester in my master's at New England Conservatory, I focused on that assignment and I put all my NEC like projects to the side because I was like, I am going to prove these people that they need me. Not only do they want me, they need me. And I was like, I had a chip on my shoulder.
Yeah.
And I showed up off book for all the choir stuff, which wasn't asked of us because we had choir rehearsals to brush up on. But I was off book, totally memorized. And when we went into staging, because I was memorized, I was more confident than a lot of the other singers. So I was able to try new things in staging and really communicate with the director more. And I wasn't carrying a score with me and writing notes down, because I was actually really involved. And they came up to me a few weeks later and they said, we're really impressed with you and we want to write an opera for you. And wow. I was like, whoa, so this is a big time opera company too. This is Opera Theater of St. Louis. This isn't just like some community theater. This is a big dog opera company.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, that's insane. And they ended up hiring a famous opera composer to write it, Ricky Ian Gordon, who composes for the Met. He composes for all the big houses. And then the female lead was Stephanie Blythe, who's a household name in the opera community. Like I studied her when I was in school. And so here I am sharing the rehearsal hall with Stephanie Blythe for like a month and a half before we actually started performing. And at the end of that run, Stephanie, she said to me, there are one of two young singers that I think are the most talented people I've ever met, and you're one of them. And if you want this career, really, really want this opera career, you're gonna be the guy. You will be the household name, but you gotta really want it. You gotta love this lifestyle. You gotta eat, sleep, breathe opera. And for me, that stuck with me because I didn't eat, sleep, and breathe opera. The fact that I was so good at it was really cool. But at that time in my life, I was a young man. I think I was 25 at the time. And here I am on the cover of Opera News. You would think that I would be like, whoa, I found it. I'm doing it. This is what I'm going to do. But her saying that to me opened my eyes to, is this what I want? Like, here I am. I'm at the pinnacle. This is it. And is this what I want? And ultimately, I didn't feel like that was what I wanted. I wanted something different. And I didn't know what it was. Geez, I don't know if I'd be sitting here on this call with you today if I decided to stick with opera. Which was a tough call because I made a lot of money singing opera, but it's just not necessarily. So I would say, if one thing stuck with me, it was Stephanie Blythe saying that to me. I would say it changed my whole life in a good way because I could have just kind of went through the motions and stayed in opera, but it ultimately wasn't really what I wanted to do.
And it takes a lot. It takes a big person to really realize that, accept it, come to terms with it, and go in a different direction with it.
It was tough, man. It was tough. At the time I was getting into lucid dreaming. I don't know if you've ever fallen into that rabbit hole.
I've heard of it, yeah.
But I was really into lucid dreaming at the time, and I had a dream where I literally asked my subconscious, is this what you want to do? And I woke up that morning, and that was the morning I decided, I think I got to change directions because this isn't what I want to do.
Really prompted the self-searching, though. Like, you're really making yourself wonder, is this what I want to do? Is this what I'm meant to do with my life? Makes you ask all of those really deep questions about yourself.
For sure. And that's a tough thing to walk away from, man. I mean, when I was on stage singing opera, I would be in the zone that I couldn't even explain. Like, I couldn't even begin to try to explain what that zone was like. I mean, I had the audience in the palm of my hands when I went out there. You know what I mean? And that was like a superpower. But there was just something about the lifestyle, the whole lifestyle form of traveling over here and then singing in this opera company and then going right to another one and then to another one. And all we're singing is opera. And you have to take care of your voice to the umph degree, way more than any other vocal genre needs to. And it wasn't the performing that made me not want to stick with it. It was all the other stuff. It was like it was tough to really be my authentic self while doing that, you know? Like,
Sure. Yeah.
well, what if I want to add some vocal distortion to something? Like, you don't do that in opera, you know? And if you do, you'll get a bad review. Like, you'll literally end up in the Washington Post if you do something like that. And so it was like, yeah, I just don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life. I think I can navigate my life in a different way. And so that's what I did.
It's like I said, it takes a huge person and a lot of grit to do that. Not everybody can do that. That's
Yeah, it's very anxiety inducing as well.
I know it.
Yeah.
Trust me. As someone who bears the weight of ADHD, I suffer.
me
Well,
too.
I wouldn't say I suffer, but I would say that it kind of sort of ties into that in the sense that I have trouble at times figuring out what I want to do and staying in a side of things whenever in reality my brain is like, I want to try something new every other day. And
I struggle with that too because I'm also ADHD.
yeah, I'm glad to know that I'm not alone in that regard for sure. But I think I won't go too far into this on my own, but this is an interview about you, but I will say, I don't know, I'm not sure if you can relate to this, but in saying so, whenever I first started here on YouTube, I started it completely on a whim. That's something that people with ADHD do, is that they do things compulsively. And this channel was a complete impulsive decision, no doubt about it. But I tell you what, I've had many days where I've been like, am I supposed to do this? Do I want to do this? And my answer to myself is still yes, I do, because I see my life going in this direction. But it's a weird internal struggle, right? You know,
For
you
sure.
want to move on to something new, but
And it's
you have
okay
this.
to have those side quests. Well, you see these paintings behind me. I mean, that was a side quest. Those took a lot of time, man. And like, even like that stupid submarine door that I built, it's like that was a compulsive decision. One night I was like, "Ooh, I want to do something with the door." I know, I'll make a submarine door. You know what I mean? And I went out into the garage and I found a bunch of plywood and I started cutting plywood. And next thing I know, I'm ordering a wheel off of Etsy. And you know, and it's okay to have those side quests. We need those, I think. When I got Wyatt, my dog Wyatt, the golden retriever, he's a big part of my channel now. When I got Wyatt, I mean, I started off thinking, oh, I'm just going to get a dog. Next thing I know, he's got 60 commands that he can do, and he's got 12 titles. And that's the ADD thing to do, right? I got like obsessed with training Wyatt and spending time with my dog and doing those things. But yeah, finding the balance is tough with ADHD because it's like you have to find a way to incorporate all that stuff into what you're doing, right? On the artistic front, if we don't do stuff like that, then our art will suffer. That's the other thing. If I don't do those things, if I don't, like, I love going to the gym. If I don't go to the gym, if I don't train my dog, if I don't do those things that fill my creative cup, it will show in my music 100%. If you listen to my music when I'm not filling my creative cup, it will not be interesting. It's just going to be like, oh, this guy's good at singing, cool, right? Whereas like now I'm going at it with a full head of steam. Like I said, I got a full cup, right? And I can now really be more artistic. At least that's how I feel. So give yourself some grace, my friend. Like give yourself give yourself a pass on feeling that way because you're wired that way. You need to fill your cup in order for these interviews to happen, right? I think it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah, and you know, it's words that I need to hear. You know, it's one of those things where I need to pour into other portions of myself in order to pour into this. Because, to be perfectly honest with you, I have a lot at stake here in a good way. Like I have something going here. I want nothing more than to further it and further the passion for music through others and through these interviews and the analyses, and it's a beautiful thing to.
I'll tell you, man, it's a common feeling too. Like obviously getting into like when I got into doing Studio Brev and started doing lots and lots of auditions and interviews for it, a very common theme was adults that are doing their, you know, their jobs, their 9 to 5s, whatever it is, but really feeling like something's missing. Like I've always wanted to be good at singing, but I never gave myself the like the privilege or the I never gave myself the chance to really do it. A lot of them felt guilty doing it, right? Because they're like, well, it's not my job, and I'm not focusing on my kids, or I'm not focusing on my home or my social life, and I'm focusing on me, and they feel like it's selfish, right? And one thing that I've really noticed in this journey of building Studio Brev is that once these people actually do start filling that creative cup and learning how to do something that they've always wanted to do, it rubs off on the other areas of life. Like I've had a lot of people come to me and be like, yo, I used to hate running my board meetings. I have to run a board meeting every Monday and we have to sit down with everyone, and I used to hate running them because I don't really like talking in front of people. It was like, but since I started doing this, I look forward to them. Like I enjoy the board meetings now because I'm so articulate and I feel more confident. And you know, that's a really common thing for people is they feel like they can't do those other side quests, those other side projects, right? That they have to zone in on this one thing always, constant. And if it's not that, they have to look at their family and just the family and this, and then they forget about their own cup. They forget about themselves. And so that's actually I would say that's my biggest passion right now, is actually helping other adults find that. And obviously we do it through singing in Studio Brev. So, I mean, I think we all have a little bit of that.
Yeah, without question. Since we're on the subject of Studio Brev, we'll take this time to take a quick little breather and kind of give you an opportunity to explain Studio Brev a little bit, kind of self-plug, hop on a podium, tell us what you're doing,
sure.
Anything interesting you got going on, you know, self-plug just a little bit, and then we'll move on to a couple more questions after that.
So I mean, I already kind of said a lot of it, but Studio Brev was always something that I wanted to do. Like I was teaching at UHeart and teaching primarily college and high school students. I did have a few community students that were adults, and I just working with them was so much fun because here they are, they're in the middle of their careers and they have families and they're taking this time to improve on a craft later on in life. And to me, that's inspiring because a lot of people don't have the courage to do that. Right? A lot of people, like a lot of them would be embarrassed to even, like a lot of adults would be embarrassed to say like, yeah, I started taking voice lessons, you know? So I was always kind of like, wow, this guy's super cool. Like this guy's a pioneer. And so when I went viral on social media, Jen and I both were like, this might be our opportunity to finally share like more with the world. Right. And with adults that have always wanted to do this, but have struggled to find how to. And so what it is it's an online program. It's all online where you meet with me and Jen over Zoom. And we have another coach. Her name's Jessie. Jessie went through my program and she's a professional jazz singer. And it's what it is it's instruction from me and Jen and Jessie. It's a 1-year program. They have multiple times per week to work with me and Jen in coaching settings. There's a community of singers in there. We teach the fundamental principles of singing. That's the first thing we cover, the 4 pillars. We really go in depth with that. And then we move on to things like subtext and really building the emotion. We go into active characters. So making the song, building the character that you're trying to portray within your song. We talk a lot about that. All that comes down to the emotion of the song. And really, when we sing, what do we want the takeaway to be? Like if I'm going to sing a karaoke or if I'm going to go sing a solo with my choir, what do I want the audience to take away from that piece? And we really get down to that, like just down to the barest bones. And it's a full year of working with us like that. And like I said, it's multiple sessions per week. There's a ton of online resources that we also offer. And by the end of it, the goal is by the end of the year, everyone has a good enough understanding of their voice and how to continue improving, for the rest of their life.
It's an incredible passion that you have for this project too, because this is something that even I am trying to navigate with myself. Is the person that you described with the 9 to 5 trying to really explore a craft that they have a passion for. And this is something that my viewers don't know yet, but I'm actually a closet singer, or at least that's what I would call myself. Is I have this burning desire to use my voice, and I like to sing. I grew up singing, but I'm one of those people that you've probably heard this term used pretty often, is imposter syndrome. I suffer from that, and I will say suffer here. Yeah, do. It's bad. It's bad. I detest the sound of my own voice, and it has caused me some. We'll say it's caused me some downfalls in the past with some projects that I could have gone a long way with. But in saying that, though, it really impresses me and makes me happy to hear that you have a program and a company that is centered around bypassing that and building people up.
Now, let me ask you this. I know this is your podcast, but
go for it.
You said you had some discouraging moments with your singing. Is that what I'm kind of hearing?
Yes.
Did you ever feel like those discouraging moments had a trickle down into other areas of your life during those periods of time?
That's a good question. And I'm gonna be transparent. I'm not gonna pretend like it didn't. I'm gonna be transparent for everybody listening. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
So it's definitely affected my life in more ways than one. Whenever I've had those moments where having that fight with myself internally, I don't like the way I sound, or some other external stimuli has caused me to kind of dig into this mental rabbit hole of not really appreciating your own sound.
It's a confidence thing, right?
Yeah.
And so when I teach audition singing techniques, the first thing that I teach, and this is one thing that a lot of people I think overlook, is when you walk through the door, imagine you're at the audition, the door opens, they call your name. That's when the audition starts. The audition starts when the door opens. It doesn't start when you start singing. So we have to rehearse that. We have to build confidence through that. We have to build off of that. That walk that you do across the room while the panel is sitting at their table taking notes from the singer prior. They're not even looking at you half the time, which is awkward. You have to rehearse that. You have to plan for that. You walk through the room. You give your music to the pianist, okay? You give them tempos. You communicate with the pianist. Maybe you have a few markings in your score that you want them to look at first. You rehearse this ahead of time. You don't put it to chance when you walk through that room. You rehearse this. And then you walk to the crook of the piano and you introduce yourself. You rehearse the introduction. You rehearse how you're going to introduce yourself, the song, all of that. You even rehearse giving your pianist the nod to start playing, okay? All of that is rehearsed. And why do we do that? We do that to build confidence so that we're not starting on the wrong foot. Now, to compare that to when we have a bad, something discouraging happens, and this doesn't just happen with singing. I mean, this could happen with some guy at the weight room too. We were talking about that earlier. Maybe some guy was going for something on the bench press and one of the plates fell off and he made a big kaboom, ba-boom, and something like that happened. No one got hurt, but it was embarrassing. Well, now he's starting that day on the wrong foot. He doesn't even realize that lack of confidence is trickling into the rest of his day, his week, maybe even his month. And that's one thing that I've noticed in doing a lot of these calls with Studio Brev is that you're not alone in feeling that. I do feel like my lack of ability to sing this song or this song that I wanted to do, it did affect my confidence. I didn't even realize that until now. And a lot of people don't realize it until they even get good at singing, that it starts to have this trickle-down effect and make other things in their life feel more confident, feel more on top of the world, feel more articulate, more social, more confident in general. And so that is why I think Jen and I have gotten so passionate about this, just because we've seen so many people's lives transform through tackling this hurdle. And it all started for us when we were teaching in the community division at UHeart and at another place called Falsettis. We used to teach there. And that was where this passion started, because we started seeing this specifically with the adult students. Because with kids, like let's face it, like with a kid, we're taught when we're kids, hopefully, that it's okay to fail. It's not going to ruin your whole day if you go to sing the high note in your aria and it doesn't come out. Like they're a kid. They're going to go to the next class or whatever and they're fine. But for some reason with adults, it doesn't always work that way. And now they couldn't sing this note, and now they actually have a meeting they have to go to, and they're starting that meeting now off on the wrong foot. You know what I mean? They're not starting it with like, damn, I just crushed that song. That was awesome. And so I think that's one of the reasons that I got so passionate about this.
And it's like I said before, it's an incredible initiative that you have in this company, this vision, and it's no wonder that it's succeeding. It deserves the success with that kind of initiative, that drive, and that motivation. And I have nothing to say other than you got anyone out there that is struggling like myself, or those that want to explore the idea of singing, please entertain the thought of Studio Brev. Might change your life.
For sure. Yep. And what we do is we do an initial Zoom call with people where it's not necessarily like an audition. It's more of like an interview. We'll do a little assessment of the voice. And it, like, from there, we don't necessarily always say like, oh, you should be doing Studio Brev. We walk through the whole process. We make sure like what's right for this person, right? Because if Studio Brev's not right for them, we're not gonna even bring that there.
Sure.
A lot of times, I mean, we've even gone online to look up what's in your area, like what do you have available to you? You know what I mean? And we run it more that way rather than like, hey, come study with us. Come study with us. That's not how we feel. It's more just like, all right, what's right for this person? Can I actually help this person? If I feel like I can help this person more than they could otherwise with the resources they have, then we can talk about, you know, moving forward with something like my program. But all of it's designed to build confidence really in adults. That's why we do this.
It's an incredible initiative, and I commend you at the highest level for it.
Thank you.
I have a couple more things that I wanted to ask you before we start wrapping this up. And at the end, there will be a little bit of a section where we'll kind of flip the script a little bit. And I do this for us, where I give you guys an opportunity to ask anything about me that you want to, but we'll get to that. So there were a couple of more personal things that I did want to ask you. One of them being, are there any instruments that you play? Because I've not necessarily seen them in your day-to-day content, but that's something that I was curious about, and what I typically like to ask.
Yeah, I play a little guitar, and I play piano. I'm not a like sheet music person with either of them. I play by ear or by chords, but I'm a noodler. I'm good at noodling on both instruments. I can kind of just noodle my way around a guitar, noodle my way around a piano, and it's fun. And I can accompany myself, and I have on a few videos. I'm by no means like anywhere near as good at those instruments as I am with my singing. But yeah, those are the two instruments that I kind of noodle around on.
Yeah. And though free time for you may seem like, to me, it may seem like free time for you is probably a rare commodity. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, there's always something going on.
Yeah. And given that, in the event that you do find yourself with off time, what do you find yourself doing, for anyone that might not know about anything interesting that you might be doing in your off time?
It's either going to be one of these paintings, or I'm at the gym. One of those two, or training my dog Wyatt. DIY projects around the house. Like I built this room. That was a big undertaking. So I don't even know if I consider it free time. I like did a full remodel of my kitchen. I did a full remodel of my bathroom. But like, yeah, it's kind of, I don't know if I would call that free time. It's just doing things that I enjoy doing, spending time with my wife. You know, we'll go walk around like the neighborhood, or we'll, you know, if we don't have anything going on, you know, typically we go for walks, uh, things like that. We're pretty simple, but yeah, I spend a ridiculous amount of time at the gym. I don't know if everyone knows that. I have figured out how to kind of incorporate that into my content more on Facebook than anywhere. Um, and it's been great because now people they get to watch my fitness journey, and I've even monetized like the fitness stuff. So now I have like some sponsors that are even kind of helping me with that. And so that was kind of a cool way to take another hobby, find a way to incorporate it into my niche, and utilize it, you know, because the content's fun and it's cool, but if you can't figure out ways to bring your own personality to it and your own life to it, I think you're missing out. You know what I mean? So figuring out how to incorporate my life into it, you know, like Wyatt. Like I did a video that went viral with me singing Wyatt's commands and him doing the commands, and it was really cute. People liked it. They were like, "Damn, I didn't know his dog could do all that," and
Yeah.
like so, like things like that.
It's and some people might not have known that about you, but I remember in watching you progress throughout your journey, as I was progressing through mine, was that you also lifted quite a lot. You're
Yeah,
into powerlifting, yes.
I used to.
Okay.
I'm not powerlifting anymore, but that was because I really hurt my back. I used to compete in powerlifting,
Okay.
and it stinks. I would still love to, but my lower back is, I don't want to risk it anymore. So I don't really do the main lifts. I don't do the deadlift or the heavy squats anymore. Like I used to. Now I'm doing more of a bodybuilding based approach where I focus more on mobility. And so every single exercise focuses on like the deep stretch of the muscle and like really focusing on the mobility of the exercise and less on how much weight I'm moving. It's
Yeah.
funny. My challenge is to get as much benefit out of the least amount of weight that I can lift, right? So like if I can get just as much stimulus on, let's just say, a dumbbell bench press with 80 pounds as I could with 150 pounds, right? Just by simply doing more reps and really focusing on mobility, I would rather do the 80 pounds because there's less injury risk, right? As I get older,
Exactly.
I'm getting more and more aware of these injury risks just because powerlifting, I went through the ringer with that. I mean, I tore a hamstring, I tore a quad, I got a herniated disc, I got a bulging disc. Um, yeah, I've done a lot of damage. Tore my shoulder, so yeah.
It from those days though, one of my personal um like one of those things that I'm interested in terms of that portion of your life, I'd be interested to know what were some of your PRs in your powerlifting journey that you're most proud of?
Uh, the 425 overhead press. Yeah,
Wow.
seated overhead press, which is funny. My shoulders were stronger than my chest. I had a 405 bench press. Uh, my
Goodness.
shoulders my shoulders were actually stronger. The 675 deadlift, and then the 605 squat. Those are all my best lifts. None of those happened in a meet. None of those were in meet, so we don't consider those in that world.
Yeah.
But those were my peak lifts for those. For like bicep curls, I used to go in and grab the 150s and do hammer curls with 150s. Luckily, I never tore my bicep because that's a bicep tear waiting to happen.
I I tell you, did you ever see that viral clip of that guy who was doing preacher curls and he had a double bicep tear
Yes.
at the same time? Oh my god.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've seen those.
that video makes me never want to lift heavy on bicep ever again.
Yeah, so the highest I'll go on the hammer curls now is the 80s. I don't go any higher than 80s because I know that I can do those.
That's still that's
Yeah,
still mind blowing to me though because 80 pounds. I'm lucky to lucky to curl a bar. At least where I'm at right now.
I mean,
I don't compare myself, but
I started lifting weights when I was in sixth grade. So that was actually literally a year before I started singing in school. So I've been really doing lifting honestly longer. So
yeah,
it's been a huge part of my life.
most certainly.
That's as soon as this interview's done, that's where I'm going. I'm going to the gym.
I heard that, man. I heard that. Okay. I have one more question, and then we'll have that transition to the next section, and then a send out question.
Let's do it.
Do you have any, do you have one good tip? Like the most influential tip you could possibly give? What would that be to someone that sings currently and wants to improve or wants to make a career out of singing?
Follow your voice. Your voice will tell you what it wants to sing. If you can get good, you have to get good at singing in your comfort range first. You got to get really, really good at what you already have. So find songs that fit your voice right now and get them so polished. Get them as good as you can possibly get them. Focus on the meaning of the song. Focus on the text. Get it to the point where when you sing it, people are like, whoa, that was really good. If you start stacking songs like that to the point where maybe you have 4 or 5 songs that you can really sing super, super well, like you're proud of it, like you would sing this in front of people, you will naturally continue to get better. You will naturally start to discover new colors, new parts of your voice. It will happen organically. You without even necessarily needing any of those little tips that help you sing higher or the subharmonics, low singing techniques. Without even having that, just get good at what you already have. A lot of people skip that step. A lot of people go right to, no, but I want to sing a low B flat 0, and I'm just shaking my head being like, but you don't even sound good at what you can do. So like, get good at what you can do. Get good at that. Like that's my biggest tip for people. And I think one of the reasons I was so successful as a voice teacher at the university was I was always really good at identifying at what people could already do really well and sending them into auditions with those pieces, sending them into competitions with those pieces, and getting them so good where to the point where people are like, damn, that person made unbelievable progress. And it's like, yeah, it's because I built off of their strengths and we're working on the weaknesses. It's not that we're not working on them, but I'm not going to put those weaknesses in front of people. I'm going to put the strength in front of people. I'm going to be like, yo, you should hear my student, sing this song because they knock it out of the park. You know what I mean? And what that does is it builds the confidence. It gets them more engaged. Now they're like, ooh, I think I can actually sing this other song. Then they go to sing it and they're like, whoa, I didn't even know I could do that. You know what I mean? And so I would say, get really, really good at what you do have before worrying about what you don't have.
And there's a saying that I heard from the fitness side of content creation. I forget his name, but it's a specific saying that really applies to what you're saying here is don't major in the minor.
Yeah.
Don't major yourself in the minor. And
yeah.
I need to follow that advice myself.
It's funny with dog training. It's the exact same thing. If you are training a dog and your goal is to teach them, a sit, to a down, to a rollover, to a spin, to take a bow or whatever, you need to focus on what they are good at. Otherwise, the dog loses interest. If you start to try and force them into a new trick out of an old trick that they haven't really gotten down yet, the dog starts to get discouraged. They start to lose interest. It's no longer a fun game for them. And now you've lost it. Good luck even getting them to do a consistent sit stay. You've really got to lean into the strengths. And so at the end of every training session with my dog, we end with something that he's really good at and something he's confident in. And then his tail starts wagging. He's like, I did it. He's so excited. You give him the treat. And that's how you end it. That's the end on that positive note. Now, the next time you go to train, he's excited. He's like, oh my God, we're about to train. I love this,
Yeah, without question. That was very valuable, and I'm sure that somebody listening to that will find value in it.
I hope so.
And in saying that, we're going to move on to this final section of the podcast where, should you have any questions for me, that the floor is open to you for that. So we have a few minutes if you want to go for it.
How did you discover all of this? Like, how did this start for you? How did you get into the point where you're like, hey, I want I want to hop in on this social media stuff too and interview these people, and I want to be a part of this.
That started, I would say around around August of 22. I was already kind of exploring this side of music. I was in, a cappella. I was kind of exploring bass singing. I had this passion for a cappella growing up, even through my teenage years. And I was wanting to see, I wanted to know more about these people, the people that sang, the people that made music. I wanted to know their stories, what brought them into the music, what made them love music. And I wanted to kind of share my love for music through singing, but I wasn't quite at the point where I was ready to just start releasing my own content on a regular basis. And then it hit me. I saw people like Peter who were not only doing musical analyses on YouTube, but were also just interviewing singers. He has this series called Vocal Arts. You've been on it.
Yep.
And
twice.
Yeah. And it hit me at that point. It was like, I'm passionate about music. I've been around it a long time, and I've heard a lot of music, played a lot of music, sang to myself, though being a closet singer. Why not make a YouTube channel where I can share some basic and intermediate level insights with people on little trinkets inside music, what makes it awesome. And then on the side, my ultimate drive was talking to people, learning their story through music, how they got here, what their passion is, what their mission is, how they got to where they are. And I kind of just blended those two things into one. And then before long, one thing led to the next. And I have this channel called The Vocast at the time. Yeah. And I just start interviewing people, and it starts going incredibly well. Like, I think I recall getting 2,000 subscribers in less than 6 months, which is a pretty stellar start on YouTube, if I understand things correctly. And I'm so thankful for everyone that has stuck with me so far, by the way. You made it this far in the podcast. Thank you so much. Yep. But that's kind of the origin story, so to speak.
Great, man. Cool. Sweet, man. Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's cool that you took that initiative. A lot of people aren't willing to take the initiative to start something like that.
It's scary too.
Yeah, it's scary. You got to put yourself out there.
And having never done so before, it really is an intimidating thing. And I'm trying to remember, there was a quote from a movie. Oh, you know what? It's from Robin Williams. I just don't remember what movie show it was, but there was something that he said. Someone said something about that. They were like, isn't that scary to you? Or like, isn't this terrifying? Or going out into the unknown, does that terrify you? He said, yes, but it's exciting. That's the part about it that's exciting, is that the unknown.
Yeah.
And that kind of clicked with me at the time. I was like, that's what's exciting about it, is that I don't know what's going to happen, but let's find out.
Sure.
Then here I am 3 years later talking to people like you, telling me about their success stories, and me getting to share your stories with them out there.
Sure.
Want to know more. Want to know the mission and the faces behind the music. And
right.
Yeah, that's kind of where everything started, at least on my end.
Cool. I always tell people, you got to keep throwing darts at the dartboard. Just keep throwing darts, because you can't get a bullseye unless you throw the dart. And so that's what it sounds like to me, is like you're throwing darts at the dartboard. You're starting, you take the initiative, you're trying something, the unknown, right? You don't know until you throw that dart, right? But you have to be willing to do that. You have to be willing to take a chance and try it, because if you don't, you never know. And it's funny, once you get a bullseye, all the darts that preceded it, even if they didn't even hit the board, they don't matter. You only need one thing to click. You don't need them all to click. You just need one thing to click. And that's where a lot of people get discouraged, is they stop trying. They stop because maybe they failed at one thing, failed at another, failed at another. It's like, just keep throwing them. That's it. And then eventually, boom, you get a bullseye. And all those ones, those quote unquote failures, they weren't failures now. Now they were stepping stones to getting you here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm always big on telling that to my students. Just got to keep throwing darts. Just got to keep trying. We got to keep tweaking it. Throw it again. You know what I mean?
That it's a really huge piece of advice too that even I can gain from. Is there any other immediate pressing things that came to mind?
No, I mean, I'm ADD, so my brain will just go everywhere. When I'm thinking about throwing darts at dartboards now, I'm just like, well, what darts have I thrown? You know, geez, maybe I need to throw some more. These paintings were a tough one for me because I put those on social media. I did time lapse videos of the paintings, and I was afraid of that at first. I was like, are people going to hate this? Are they going to like it? What are they going to say? But they ended up doing well, so people liked them. So I mean, I did 9 of them, and they did really well. And so that was just, again, it was another dart I was throwing at the dartboard because it's not singing, you know, it's me painting, so it's different. It's a different niche. Some people will hit unfollow when they see that. They'll be like, "That's not what I want." No,
Right?
you'd be surprised. Like at this point, I've got, I think, across all a cumulative something like 2.5 million followers or something. It is impossible. Absolutely impossible to please every one of them. And so like that's one thing I had to get out of my brain is like, how do I please all millions of these people? It's like, no, you're going to post something and you'll probably get 500 people that don't like it, at least, you know what I mean? Because that's a lot of people. What are the odds that they're all going to like it, you know?
Right.
And so I had to get that out of my head real quick of, how do I please everyone? You're not gonna. Just be yourself. And if they don't like it, they can leave. And that's fine.
That's a really key piece of advice that I had to tell myself, and I had received from many people going into YouTube too. Is that that's something that I had to realize is that at the end of the day, as long as you are being your genuine self, then there's no issue. People can dislike it if they want. There's other creators out there who they may like better than me, and that's totally fine. Everyone has different desires and different preferences.
For sure. We always get compared to our friends. It's just so funny.
Comparison
like,
is the enemy.
They'll put it in the comment section. They'll be like, "Oh, geez, I think Bobby's better," and I'm like, "Oh, cool. That's actually a compliment because Bobby's a good friend of mine." Like, you know what I mean? I'll be sure to pass on your good message. You know, I get that. I get it literally all the time with people like Bobby or Tim or Jeff or Avi or so. You don't even realize that none of us really give a crap what you think.
That it's
we're
the
all
key.
friends.
Like yeah.
We're not competing.
No, you're not competing. You're in your own niche. Like, and even if you were competing, it's in good competition. You know?
Yeah.
Like, we're all friends here.
Right.
But
so yeah, man. I mean, that's really it from me.
I hear you.
I can't think of anything else that I would like to. I think we covered just about everything that I would hope to cover. That was a fun one, man. I feel like we covered a lot. We went through a lot in that hour and a half.
We most certainly have, and it is just about time for us to wrap things up. I do have one last question that I've started asking a lot of my guests, and it's a very heavy one, but it's amazing to see the responses to it. And that is, the original question used to be, if you could steal a person's voice, who would it be and why? But I've kind of migrated from stealing a voice to sharing the stage with. If you could share the stage with any one singer or musician, past or present, who would it be and why?
Yeah, Frank Sinatra, 100%. Because he was the king of storytelling. He had a lot of pizzazz. He was fun. He loved to sing. He had total, absolute control of the stage. He was a stage monster. He was incredible. He was not the most flashy voice, right? He didn't have the crazy highs. He certainly wasn't doing what Pavarotti did. You know, he wasn't doing what Freddie Mercury did. He didn't do all that. He didn't need to. He told the story better than anyone, though. You could listen to Frank Sinatra sing the most boring story about him going to a bar and drinking what is it? One for my baby and one more for the road. And it's like a boring story, but when he tells it, you're hanging on to every single word. You know what I mean?
And he
hear
commands your attention.
He does, and he does it with such grace. So yeah, it would be Frank Sinatra.
If I had to say anyone from the past, that would be my pick as well. But
Oh, cool.
I'm gonna
All
put a
right.
bug in your ear for anyone anyone present that is currently with us still. Have you heard of Alec Benjamin?
I haven't.
If you were a sucker for storytelling, you're in for a treat. He
Cool.
has got one of the most unique voices I've ever heard, and he has a knack for storytelling like you've never heard before. So you want to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole, you got a few minutes, look up
Sure.
Alec Benjamin.
I will.
He is incredible. And I'd have to say one more for current, David Kushner.
Okay, yeah.
That man has got some of the most unique sounding music I have ever heard. And this captivating baritone voice. It's one of those voices that you hear and you're like, strangely enough, I want to hear more of this. Why have I not heard of this person? I need to hear everything they're about. You know, like you just go ballistic. You never heard of them before. And
Sure.
I would have to say Alec Benjamin and David Kushner. If I could ever break out of this shell of mine and go out on stage and perform, I'd probably have to say Alec Benjamin.
Yeah. It's tough for me to answer. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to share the stage with some stage monsters, and I've been really lucky. And I mean, I love singing with everyone. That's a tough one for me. I mean, if there was one, it's Frank Sinatra, and
Yeah. Without a doubt.
but anyone on my wall, I mean, I would sing with. I got Julie Andrews over there, you know, Mary Poppins. I'd love to have sang with her. I would have loved to have sang with Toby Keith. I would have loved to sing with Freddie Mercury. I would have, you know, all of them. You know, Pavarotti. There's a lot of people on that list. So it's a tough question, but yeah, the obvious one for me is Frank Sinatra.
That man was absolutely
Yeah, man.
Big
Well,
Brev.
cool, man.
It's
This
been
was so much fun.
it's been incredible. I am so privileged to have had you on. You were an absolute honor to have on here. It was great talking to you. Thank you again for just giving me an hour and a half of your time just to kind of chill.
Of course.
Tell me about your story, and I know everyone out there listening is going to appreciate it.
Well, the honor is mine, my friend. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Very much appreciate it. Guys, we love you. We take care of yourselves, and we will see you in the next podcast. Bye.